Mid-pandemic my boss disappeared. Just as we were gearing up for our most challenging, time-intensive project in the last 5 years, he dropped off the face of the earth. We kept working for a week or so without him because everything was virtual and the virtual work world was still so new, we didn't really need him. We were delegating tasks ourselves and completing things on our own. We spoke to coworkers maybe twice a week. But some decisions were beyond our discretion, so we could not move forward on those aspects of the project until we received a response from him. After about 7 to 10 total days of silence, we called his boss's boss, who informed our team that our boss had COVID so wasn't able to work right now. We took that at face value, of course, sent him letters of well wishes and didn't bother him with work stuff, or ask why he was able to notify his boss but not us. 3 weeks go by. Still not a word. We are beginning to discuss amongst ourselves whether or not he's maybe died. We're terrified and horrified and so concerned. We're contemplating calling his extended family. We're sending flowers and care packages to his apartment. Meanwhile, the project has descended into chaos because no leader was appointed in our boss's stead. So we are forced to navigate several layers of bureaucracy in order to accomplish most anything at all. Whereas in the past he would have just signed off in real time. Around week 4 or 5 one of our coworkers suggests he doesn't really have COVID but is instead using it as an excuse to take time off. We all jump all over our coworker, asking how he could insinuate something like that and lamenting about what a tragedy our boss is probably living through. People were chilly to him for days after that. Week 7. We're undertaking a letter-writing campaign to upper management demanding an acting boss be appointed while ours is recovering. The project is a month behind schedule. We're all working overtime every day, sometimes on weekends, without extra compensation, just to keep up with the clusterfuck of the boss's sudden absence. Week 8. He finally reappears, logging into a morning meeting as though nothing happened. He looks well rested, well fed, and has a tan. Not at all like someone who's just come out the other side of a 6-week respiratory virus. He says something quickly to the effect of "Yeah, that was brutal. Glad to be better and glad to be back. Let's get to work." But doesn't want to talk about what happened or answer any of our questions like, "Were you in the hospital? What was it like?" etc. Fast forward to about 4 or 5 months after this. My sister sends me a promo for a fairly new reality show. I'd never heard of it but it's on a major platform, and says, "Isn't this guy a friend of yours or something?" I swear I've seen him and you to get. I watched the trailer for this show, and lo and behold, there's my boss participating as a contestant on a reality TV show. It did not take long for me to put the pieces together and realize he took extended leave to go on TV, that he knew he wouldn't otherwise get during this massive project, and lied about it under the guise of a vicious disease that nearly all of us had lost a loved one to. I sit and stew with this information, unsure of how to handle it. I know confronting him won't get me very far, but I can't just do nothing, right? I'm not close enough with any of my colleagues to discuss this with them and trust that they wouldn't run off and send an all-company email about it. So I slept on it a few nights and then the opportunity fell right in my lap. I got an email from corporate encouraging teams still working remotely to plan virtual social functions to keep a collegial culture going and to stay in touch. Among the suggestions were, game night, trivia, and watch party. With the premiere of the show only a couple weeks away I got busy telling everyone how I'd been meaning to get into this show, and it's so enticing and exciting, basically laying the groundwork to guilt them into coming to an impromptu virtual watch party off hours. I offered to get special shirts made up and send them to each person's house. Whatever I had to do to get the attention of corporate. Finally, I sent an EV to all my boss's bosses, and any other members of corporate I could justify inviting without making a total ass of myself. Because this is entirely virtual, my boss is unable to overhear any of the chatter. He doesn't realize I'm hyping up this show and he doesn't realize I've planned a watch party for it. I wasn't inviting him unless he had the balls to explicitly ask about it. I was hoping he wouldn't have heard about it at all. Not until afterwards. That was really the only way this could work. The night comes and I am screen sharing the show to a whopping 64 people. A huge chunk of my department. Many members of corporate had showed up because I was the only person stupid enough to buy into their virtual social work party scheme, so they felt pressured to support it. I was holding my breath, hoping this would go my way, bracing myself for some kind of curveball. But there wasn't even that dramatic of a build-up. Right at the outset they introduced the premise, which included the contestants being in a COVID-safe bubble in an exotic location, and gave a brief overview of each contestant. As my boss was introduced, right down to what he did for work, and I could see people register delight and surprise. Then go blank. Just before sliding into confusion and rage. The chat took a drastic turn from "oh my goodness. And I knew him when." And all sorts of pithy jokes to a brave member of my team, or perhaps one just pushed a tad too far by all the extra hours he pulled in this douche's absence, Sent the message, "Wait, when was this filmed?" My audience dropped from 64 to 58 to mid-30s, and by the time the episode was over it was just me and the other 15 core members of the team. One asked if I'd already known, but some members of the team are very close to the boss, so all I said was, "Well, I definitely do now." And wrapped up the call pretty quickly after that. Perhaps one of the best bonuses is that you could already tell from episode 1 that the character arc the show assigned to her boss was bumbling idiot. He had his true colors on in full display and some production massaging up them to the 11th degree. Boss was fired. My good buddy was promoted to his place. I am an office legend now, especially since no one is 100% sure whether or not it was intentional, and it was also satisfying that it was almost worth the dozens of hours of uncompensated overtime that led to it. Edit, title should be 8 weeks. I kept not factoring in the first couple weeks because we weren't suspicious, or burden, until the final 6.